Okay, call this Village of Greenhills Council public hearing for August 28, 2018 to order. It's to review proposed legislation, public comments pertaining to the proposed legislation. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on the proposed legislation. When recognized, please come forward to the lectern, give your name and address, and state your comment. In the interest of time, comments are limited to 3 minutes. This meeting is recorded for ease of transcription. Anybody want to comment on the proposed legislation, which is on medical marijuana?
My name is Patricia Bender, and I live on 29 Handle Lane in Greenhills. I was here last time you had a public hearing, and though there's a lot of material as to why it is therapeutic and effective, it's really not relative because of the fact that the state of Ohio already tells us that we are prohibited from having any of this going on in our village due to the fact that we are in close alignment with the schools and the library, I think it is. So my question, as it was last time, is why are we putting an ordinance together when by the state law we are unable to do it in the Village of Greenhills? It appears to me to be a very negative overtone to spend our time and talent and tax money sitting and trying to write up an ordinance and address something that's not even relative to our village. So I'm sure that the chief doesn't have problems with something that's legal, something that's effective for health and wellness, and has been demonstrated for years to be that. So now, as the state of Ohio is progressing along with everyone else, we seem to be sitting in the dark ages here in Greenhills, and I find it very hard to understand why we are pursuing something that isn't even necessary. So I don't know if you have any other answers other than what I was told last time, which I don't know that you really had any answers last time other than you thought you'd help facilitate somebody knowing they can't have it. No one?
Well,
We're not to the council discussion portion of it yet.
yeah.
We'll be discussing the issue, our individual comments during the council meeting.
Well, I thought that's what this was for.
Right now, we're at the public comments. After the public comments, there is a portion that says council discussion.
After, at the
Public
same
comments.
meeting? At
After
the
you sit
same
down.
meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yep.
Hi there. I'm Rob Howell, 34 Damon Road, and as I read the proposed ordinance, you know, it looks to me, just from the little bit that I know about this, that we're beat. I mean, if I had to bet, you guys have already decided that you're going to pass this. And so I want to come at this from a little different angle and see if maybe we can throw a Hail Mary and change that. So in Greenhills, we have cigarettes, right? Cigarettes are legal. They're highly regulated by ATF. Cigarettes kill people, but they're legal in Greenhills. My wife died of lung cancer. You know what she died from? Smoking cigarettes. She loved cigarettes and loved nicotine. Nicotine's a drug. It kills people. Give me one example of anybody that has benefited from smoking cigarettes, and I'd be willing to bet you can't come up with one. But governments like it because they get to tax it, and the retailers like it because they get to sell it. But it destroys family and it destroys lives. Alcohol, it's legal, and it's highly regulated by the Department of Liquor Control, right? Name me one health benefit from consuming alcohol, but alcohol is legal and very abundant in Greenhills. Alcohol kills people, causes domestic violence, fights, car wrecks. health problems, cirrhosis of the liver. Alcohol's bad news, but it's legal in Greenhills. Medical marijuana, it's legal. It's legal. And it's highly regulated by the Ohio Department of Pharmacy. The Ohio Department of Pharmacy, okay? Big Pharma is investing millions of dollars on the future of medical marijuana, because medical marijuana, unlike cigarettes and alcohol that destroy lives and hurt people, but they're legal in the village. Medical marijuana, what you folks are going to do is you're saying, okay, we recognize that marijuana is legal, but we don't want a dispensary in our neighborhood because we don't want the citizens to benefit on what it can do for their health issues. There are millions of people that are benefiting from smoking a little bit of medical marijuana. So all I'm asking you is to reconsider your thought process, because it makes no sense that I can have cigarettes, they're legal, they're taxed, they're regulated. Alcohol, legal, regulated, and taxed. But I can't go to a potential dispensary, and I don't believe that there's ever going to be one here. That's why I think you should just table the motion and give it time until you can see how this is going to work itself out. And in the meantime, rather than look at it as a detriment, think about how you can turn it into a benefit, maybe put a dispensary tax, or maybe even write in the ordinance that the Greenhills City maybe is an owner. So one last comment. So based on that, your position is totally illogical. But if you choose that position, I ask you to rewrite the ordinance to also eliminate tobacco and alcohol, since we can't have the legal drug marijuana. Thanks.
Hello, Monique Mason-Halter, 154 Junefield. There is a little boy who lives down the street from me who is fighting cancer. Some of you may know him and his family. His mother has posted updates about him on Facebook for several months now. If his doctors and his parents were in agreement that medical marijuana would help him, I would want it to be convenient for his parents to buy this for him. I would want that for everyone, not just this sick little boy. I have seen videos dating back over 2 years of this council discussing how to keep medical marijuana dispensaries out of the village. I understand your concerns. However, I honestly can't imagine any dispensaries wanting to set up shop here because it would be more expensive than in other nearby communities. Besides that, other nearby communities are welcoming their business. Regardless, all things considered, your continued efforts and passion for trying to keep these dispensaries out of the village seems inappropriate and pointless. It's disappointing also, at least to me, that this council couldn't apply the same very public efforts and passion to raise awareness about state and federal legislation that allows for small cell towers and other wireless infrastructure to be installed in residential yards. There may be more residents here who eventually will need medical marijuana and benefit from medical marijuana, including you and your loved ones. This being said, if a dispensary wants to do business here, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. The village could also definitely use the additional revenue as well. Thank you.
Did you want us to sign in on this or not?
Yes, please.
Somebody else did. Come here, Jack. Actually, Jack's against it as well. It is. My name is Patty Andron. I live at 32 Chalmers Lane in the midst of the target for demolition of the Historical Society, or the Historical District. Words that have been used, very well studied, are illogical, inappropriate, pointless, I'd add unnecessary. Is it holier than thou for someone to suggest that somehow or other the esteemed elected officials in this community can wave their magic wand and protect the community from all these threats to health. The state of Ohio has voted on this positively. The state is regulating things in a positive manner. The medical societies and patients throughout this country are welcoming this. Why, in God's name, would you feel that it's worthy of anyone's time or effort or money to put anything that's ridiculous on the bills, onto our ordinances? A few years back, you started down the road with pit bulls. Somehow or other, you seem to think you were saving society from the pit bulls. Well, Jack and I really don't like pit bulls. But I have PTSD. I've never had marijuana in my life, but by God, if it can make some of the pain go away from some of the horrors that I've experienced at the hands of this village, I'd welcome it. I think for you to indicate that somehow or other the cultivation, processing, and retail dispensaries, it's already been pointed out, it couldn't pass the smell test. You've got your schools, you've got your library, you got all of those things that say this isn't going to happen. So why, in God's name, can't you consider, let's say, child endangerment? I've got little kids on my street, toddlers, 2 and 3 years old, that are playing dead in the middle of the street, and the cops won't do a thing about it because the parents are irresponsible. I would welcome every one of you to sit down there as people are arriving to Palma Park, coming around the curve on Chalmers Lane and having to dodge a 2-year-old. All because this mother seems to think it's fine and dandy because there's not cars
Could we
there.
stay on topic, please?
I'm talking about hazards. Apparently, you seem to think there's some hazard here. I'm saying we've got real hazards in River City and in Greenhills, and it's your job to address those and get off your fantasy high horses on this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Time for council discussion on this. And I don't know if you updated the list by any chance of the communities that have passed this type of legislation, but to remind people, Wyoming has passed this, Evendale, Springdale, Madeira, Blue Ash, Silverton, Springfield Township. The only community close to us is Forest Park that has passed legislation to allow a medical marijuana facility in their community. So. Any other comments here in council on this?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sit in a rather uncomfortable position because with some of these folks I don't normally agree with, but on this particular issue relative to the need for this ordinance, I do agree with them, but not necessarily for this for all the reasons that the comments that were made outlined. What we were doing with this particular piece of legislation was to replace a moratorium that we put in place quite a while ago. And then that moratorium was put into place to gauge where the regulations of this particular action by the state of Ohio was going to come down. And at that time, we didn't know what the regulations were. We didn't know where it was going to be possible to put put a dispensary or any other facility type as far as related to the village. But current Ohio law does prohibits the establishment of a dispensary. at really any commercial zoned area within the village. Now, I hear loud and clear Chief Furtelman's position, and I greatly respect his position on this issue, because ultimately he and the force have to deal with the issue. However, excuse me, I sat quietly for you all. Can you sit?
Okay.
But I believe the situation, especially if the dispensary in Forest Park goes through where it is, that the concerns are going to be there. I respectfully disagree with Mr. Howe. Medical marijuana in the village of Greenhills is not illegal. It will be here. It will be available. If you have to get your prescriptions renewed, you have to go to Walgreens or CVS in Forest Park or Springdale to get them. I think it's just a matter of convenience, and frankly, I think the businesses will figure out a way to make it a matter of convenience. So I'm of a mind to take a negative stance on the passage of this ordinance, but I'll wait till that time comes.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I do have a couple comments. I know people that have benefited from medical marijuana. This has nothing to do with my thoughts about whether there are benefits or not benefits. I have concerns about, is it actually possible that 500-mile or that 500-foot distance, is that a radius, is that travel distance? And it may be possible that it could happen in the village. I have had conversations with people in other cities where it's prevalent, and the ease of getting a medical marijuana prescription. And I was just on the East Coast, and there are billboards on interstate highways that say need a medical marijuana prescription and a doctor's number underneath it to call. So I have concerns that it turns into something more than help for people that seriously need it. And again, this is not outlawing medical marijuana. It's just where will that dispensary be located. And my mind is open about this. I have not made a decision.
I would say that I'm of like mind. This was brought before us from the laws and rules, and the fact that you're wavering makes me waver even more, since it's your committee. But it's not about the legality of it, it's about the location of it. And that is something the state did put in the rules, that was something that we as a local government are allowed to decide. So bringing up the fact that the state gave us this authority, they gave us, the local government, the authority as well. So we're following the guidelines that were set forth by the passage of the state law. So I think we are doing our job. We are talking about it. This is the discussion that should be had. And I like having the input from the public. We've had public hearings where the public haven't showed up. So at least this is a topic that people are concerned about and have some opinions about. So that gives me some level of what the residents are thinking, and that's a good thing. So I encourage the discussion.
I was present when the Planning Commission had the hearing on that, and the topic was brought up as well. I'm wavering in the sense also the fact that it's putting a law on top of another law on top of another law, when it's a smooth case, having to do with the distance and so forth, if we were to table this or bring it back at a later time, what are the pros and cons of that?
I think tonight's just a first reading. I don't think there's any vote tonight.
It's a
No.
second
No,
reading.
there's
Second
no.
reading?
No, this is the first reading.
This is the first reading.
So
yeah.
there's no vote tonight.
Correct.
I would like the opportunity to ask Mr. Forbes also about what the pros and cons would be to table it or not, or so forth. So maybe we will have the chance to be able to discuss that with him later on.
And I would be like about the clarification of if it's physically possible or not, because I've heard two different things, that
Yes.
yes, it is possible in one portion, one commercial zone, and then I've heard that it's not
Not
possible.
possible, yeah.
So
I
I feel
heard
like I'm
both.
getting two
Yes.
different answers, so I would like some clarification on if it's possible, because by it saying that it's not possible and then finding out later that it is possible, I would feel like I'm getting two different
Two different
answers.
answers, yeah.
Anybody else have any comments, more? No. Okay, call this hearing adjourned.